A storm of circumstances, the rain hammered against the cracked windows of the tiny studio apartment, each drop echoing the desperation that had settled deep in Emma Collins' chest. She sat hunched over her anatomy textbook, highlighter in hand, trying to memorize the intricate pathways of the human heart, while her own felt like it was breaking under the weight of her circumstances. The space heater hummed weakly in the corner, barely cutting through the autumn chill that seeped through the thin walls. Emma pushed a strand of chestnut hair from her face and glanced at the clock. 3 in the morning, and she still had 12 chapters to review before her final exam. The exam that would determine whether she could graduate from medical school or watch 4 years of sacrifice crumble to dust. Her stomach growled, reminding her that she'd skipped dinner again to save money, surviving on instant noodles, and determination. The shrill ring of her phone cut through the quiet night like a blade. Emma's heart skipped as she saw Grace's name flashing on the screen. Her sister never called this late unless something was terribly wrong. "Grace, what happened?" Emma answered, her voice tight with worry. Her sister's voice came through shaky and pained Emma. "I need help. I fell down the stairs at my last job. My ankle, ... I think it's broken. I can barely stand." Emma's blood ran cold. Grace was her lifeline, the one person who helped her scrape together enough money for rent and books.
Right.
More than that, Grace was all the family she had left since their parents died in the car accident 3 years ago. "Where are you? I'm coming over," Emma said, already reaching for her coat. "No, wait, listen to me carefully." Grace's voice grew urgent. "I have a job tomorrow night. A new client, really important. It's at the Sterling Mansion up in Westchester Heights. The pay is incredible, Emma. More than I make in a month of regular cleaning jobs." Emma frowned. "Grace, you can't work with a broken ankle." "I'm calling you." There was a long pause. "Emma, you need to go in my place." "What?" "Grace, I'm not a professional cleaner." "I don't know anything about you know enough," Grace interrupted. "You've helped me before. And Emma, this isn't just about the money. If I cancel on Nathan Sterling, I'll never get another chance with clients like this. This could change everything for both of us." Emma paced the small space between her bed and desk. She thought of her textbooks, her exam, the mountain of student debt that grew larger each month. She thought of Grace, lying somewhere in pain, worried more about work than her own injury. "Just this once," Grace pleaded. "Wear my uniform, use my ID, they won't know the difference. It's just one evening, and then you can go back to your studies." Against every instinct screaming in her head, Emma heard herself say, "Okay, text me the address." 2 hours later, Emma stood outside the most magnificent house she'd ever seen. The Sterling Mansion rose from perfectly manicured grounds, like something from a fairy tale, all stone columns and arched windows glowing with warm light. The uniform Grace had left for her was slightly too big, and the fake ID clipped to her chest felt like a weight around her neck. She rang the doorbell with trembling fingers, her heart pounding so hard she was sure it could be heard over the gentle music drifting from inside. The door opened and Emma's breath caught in her throat. Nathan Sterling was nothing like she'd imagined, or she'd expected an older, stern businessman. She found a man who couldn't be much past 30, with dark hair slightly mussed as if he'd been running his hands through it, and the most intense green eyes she'd ever seen. He wore an expensive shirt with the sleeves rolled up, and there was something about the way he carried himself that spoke of both power and exhaustion. "You're from the cleaning service," he said, his voice deep and measured. Wasn't a question. "Yes, sir." "Grace Martinez," Emma managed, hoping her voice sounded steadier than she felt. He studied her for a moment with those penetrating eyes, and Emma felt as if he could see right through her deception. But then he stepped aside, gesturing for her to enter. "Just the main floor tonight. Living room, kitchen, and my office. My son is asleep upstairs, so please keep the noise down." Emma nodded, stepping into a world she'd only seen in magazines. Heard crystal chandeliers cast dancing light across marble floors, and paintings that probably cost more than her entire education adorned the walls. Yet despite all the luxury, there was something cold about the space, something hollow that made her shiver. "I'll be in my office if you need anything," Nathan said curtly, already turning away. As Emma began her work, she couldn't shake the feeling that this beautiful house was missing something essential. It was only when she heard a small sound from the staircase that she understood what it was. A little boy sat on the steps, clutching a worn teddy bear and watching her with the largest, saddest brown eyes she'd ever seen. He couldn't have been more than 5. Dark hair like his father's and cheeks that should have been rosy with childhood joy but instead looked pale in the dim light. Emma set down her cleaning supplies and smiled gently. "Hi there, sweetheart. I'm Emma. What's your name?" The boy didn't answer. He tilted his head and studied her with that heartbreaking mixture of curiosity and caution that spoke of a child who'd learned to be wary of strangers. Emma had always been good with children. During her clinical rotations, the pediatric ward had felt like home. Something about this little boy's loneliness called to her own memories of being young and afraid. Reaching into her pocket, she pulled out a piece of scrap paper and began folding it with practiced fingers. Within moments, she'd created a small paper airplane, which she sailed gently toward the boy. It landed at his feet, and for the first time, his solemn expression cracked with the hint of a smile. "That's for you," Emma whispered. "Maybe tomorrow you can teach me how to make a better one?" The boy picked up the plane, examined it carefully, then looked back at Emma with something that might have been hope flickering in his dark eyes. From the shadows of the office doorway, Nathan Sterling watched this interaction with a mixture of amazement and something deeper, something that had been buried under 2 years of grief and loneliness. He couldn't remember the last time he'd seen his son Oliver show interest in anyone new. As Emma continued her work, humming softly under her breath, Nathan found himself unable to return to his reports. There was something about this woman that was different from the parade of efficient, invisible staff who moved through his house. She brought a warmth that the mansion had been missing since. He pushed the thought away, but continued watching as his son crept closer to the kind stranger who'd given him a smile and a paper airplane. 2 simple gifts that meant more than all the expensive toys gathering dust in the playroom upstairs. Neither Emma nor Nathan knew it yet, but this night would change all their lives forever. Sometimes fate arrives in the most unexpected ways, wearing a borrowed uniform and carrying nothing but a heart full of compassion. Hearts begin to heal. The morning sun streamed through Emma's apartment window as she sat at her tiny kitchen table. Staring at the business card Nathan Sterling had pressed into her hand the night before. "Same time tomorrow," he had said, his voice carrying an authority that brooked no argument. But it was the look in his eyes that haunted her now, a flicker of something desperate, hopeful, when Oliver had whispered goodbye, airplane lady, as she left. Emma's phone buzzed with a text from Grace. "How did it go? Did you manage okay?" She typed back quickly. "It went fine. Rest and heal your ankle." But fine didn't begin to describe the storm of emotions swirling in her chest. She'd barely slept, replaying every moment of the evening. The way Nathan's stern expression had softened when he watched his son smile. The loneliness that seemed to echo through every corner of that beautiful house. The trust in Oliver's eyes when she'd helped him back to bed after finding him on the stairs. Her medical textbooks lay forgotten as she found herself wondering what had happened to Oliver's mother. What had carved such careful distance between father and son? And why did she feel so drawn to a world she didn't belong in? Emma stood once again at the Sterling mansion's front door, her heart racing with anticipation she couldn't quite name. This time, Nathan answered immediately, as if he'd been waiting. "You came back," he said, and there was something almost surprised in his tone. "You asked me to," Emma replied simply. As she worked, she became aware of little footsteps following her from room to room. Oliver had abandoned his usual spot on the stairs to trail behind her like a curious shadow. When she dusted the living room, he appeared with his coloring books, spreading them out on the coffee table. When she moved to the kitchen, he climbed onto a stool at the counter, chin in his hands, watching her every movement. "Are you hungry, sweetheart?" Emma asked, noticing how thin he looked. Oliver nodded shyly. Emma glanced around the pristine kitchen, noting the complete absence of child-friendly food. Opening the refrigerator, she found expensive ingredients, but nothing simple and comforting. Her heart ached as she realized this little boy was surrounded by luxury, but starving for the basic warmth of home-cooked care. "How about we make some pancakes?" she suggested. For the first time since she'd met him, Oliver's face lit up with genuine excitement. "Can we make them with chocolate chips?" "If we can find some, absolutely." As Emma mixed batter and Oliver carefully counted chocolate chips, she felt a presence in the doorway. Nathan stood there, tie loosened, jacket draped over his arm, watching them with an expression she couldn't quite read. "I hope this is okay," Emma said quickly. "He said he was hungry, and I thought it's fine," Nathan interrupted, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it, more than fine. I can't remember the last time I saw him this animated." Oliver turned to his father with flour on his cheek and joy in his eyes. "Daddy, look, Emma's teaching me to cook." Nathan's breath caught at the sound of his son using someone's name, something that hadn't happened since. He pushed the memory away and stepped into the kitchen, rolling up his sleeves. "Mind if I help?" What followed was the most natural evening any of them had experienced in years. Nathan proved surprisingly capable at flipping pancakes, though his first attempt landed on the floor, sending Oliver into fits of giggles. Emma found herself laughing too, the sound bright and unguarded in the warm kitchen light. "Tell me about yourself, Grace," Nathan said, as they sat around the kitchen island, sharing their feast. "This doesn't feel like typical housekeeping work for you." Emma's stomach clenched with guilt, but she managed to keep her voice steady. "I'm good with children. I've always enjoyed taking care of people." It wasn't exactly a lie, but it felt like one. Over the following weeks, a routine developed. Emma would arrive each evening after her classes, spend time with Oliver, and gradually begin to coax smiles and words from the withdrawn little boy. Nathan started coming home earlier, lingering in whatever room they occupied, slowly letting down his guard. She learned that Oliver's mother, Caroline, had died in a car accident 2 years ago, that Nathan had thrown himself into work to escape his grief, leaving his son to be raised by a succession of nannies who never stayed long enough to matter. She discovered that the house was full of Caroline's things, preserved like a shrine, keeping both father and son trapped in their sorrow. "He has nightmares," Nathan confided one evening, as they watched Oliver sleep peacefully after Emma had read him 3 bedtime stories. "Every night since ... since she died. But the past 2 weeks he's been sleeping through the night." Heart constricted. Children heal when they feel safe and loved. Nathan turned to look at her, his green eyes intense in the dim hallway light. "And what about adults?" The question hung between them like a bridge neither was quite ready to cross. Everything changed on a rain-soaked Thursday evening. Emma had been coming to the mansion for 3 weeks, and Oliver had begun to call her Emma instead of the airplane. Lady Nathan had started staying for dinner, and the 3 of them had fallen into an easy rhythm that felt dangerously close to family. Emma was helping Oliver with a puzzle when the front door opened, and an efficient-looking woman in a business suit entered, followed by Nathan. "This is Mrs. Patterson from the cleaning service," Nathan announced. "She's here for a routine check." Emma's blood turned to ice. Mrs. Patterson consulted her clipboard. "I'm looking for Grace Martinez. We need to discuss her performance review." Oliver looked up from his puzzle, confusion clear on his small face. "That's Emma," he said innocently. Mrs. Patterson frowned, looking between her paperwork and Emma. "I'm sorry, but our records show Grace Martinez assigned to this residence. I don't have any Emma on my staff." The silence that followed was deafening. Emma felt the walls closing in, felt 3 weeks of careful happiness crumbling around her feet. Nathan's face had gone pale, then flushed with what she recognized as betrayal and anger. "Oliver, go to your room," Nathan said quietly. "But Daddy, I want Emma to finish the puzzle now, Oliver." The little boy looked between the adults, sensing the sudden tension, tears welling in his eyes as he ran upstairs. Mrs. Patterson cleared her throat awkwardly. "Mr. Sterling, I'll need to investigate this irregularity. If this person has been in your home under false pretenses, that won't be necessary," Nathan said coldly, his eyes never leaving Emma's face. "Please go." After the woman left, Nathan and Emma stood in the elegant living room that had become so familiar now, feeling like a courtroom. Who are you? Nathan's voice was deadly quiet. Emma's hands shook as she removed Grace's ID badge. My name is Emma Collins. Grace is my sister. She was supposed to work for you, but she got hurt, and I just wanted to help her keep the job. Lead to me. Each word was precise, cutting. You came into my home, into my son's life, under false pretenses. Nathan, please, let me explain. Explain what? How you made my son care about you when you were never planning to stay. How you made me, ... double quotes. He stopped, his jaw clenching. How you made me believe that maybe, just maybe, we could be a family. Again, tears spilled down Emma's cheeks. I never meant for this to happen. I never meant to care so much. To love, don't. Nathan's voice cracked. Just don't. I trusted you with the most precious thing in my world. My son was finally healing, finally happy, and it was all built on a lie. My feelings for Oliver? For you, they're not lies. Nathan, please. But he had already turned away, his shoulders rigid with pain and fury. I want you gone. Tonight, don't come back. Emma gathered her things with trembling hands, her heart shattering with each step. As she reached the door, she heard Oliver's voice from the top of the stairs. Emma, where are you going? You coming back tomorrow for story time? She looked up at the little boy she'd grown to love like her own son, his teddy bear clutched. Tight confusion and fear written across his innocent face. I have to go, sweetheart, she managed through her tears. But remember what I told you about the stars? They're always watching over you, even when you can't see them. Oliver's lip trembled. But you promised you'd read me the rest of the dragon story. Emma's heart broke completely. Your daddy will finish it. He tells the best stories of all. As Emma walked away from the Sterling mansion for what she believed was the last time, she didn't see Nathan standing at his office window. Watching her disappear into the night, his own tears finally falling, she didn't see Oliver crying himself. To sleep, asking for the woman who had brought light back into their darkened world, behind them lay 3 weeks of joy, trust, and the beginning of healing. Ahead lay the question of whether love could survive the revelation of truth, and whether a family born from deception could ever find its way back to wholeness. Sometimes, the greatest love stories are born from the ashes of our deepest mistakes. Sometimes healing requires breaking apart first. And sometimes, just sometimes, truth becomes the bridge that leads us home.